Good evening, welcome back to Eurosport. Here we are live at Le Mans into the final 2-hour qualifying session. Riding on board at the moment with the number 1 Audi, Romain Dumas, going for the glory of France through Indianapolis at the moment, trying to grab that all-important pole position on his first flying lap of the session. If you were with us before the break, Benoit Trullier's Audi, the number 2 car, was put on provisional pole by Marcel Fassler, and Stefan Sarazan had a real go. We're going to have a look back at that in a moment, just see what happened in that session. But most extraordinary session. Liz Halliday and John Hindhoff with me. Good evening, both of you.
Good evening.
Hello, Mark.
Yeah, so that was really woke up right at the end of this, didn't it?
Yeah, it was brilliant. It was a fantastic finish to the first bit of qualifying. We love it when that happens, don't we? It keeps it exciting. But I am looking forward to seeing if Stefan Sarazan is going to bring the charge now for Peugeot.
Yeah, I mean, and very, very interestingly, both Peugeot and Audi told us that 7 o'clock this evening, they weren't going to be pushing for pole. What's happening? Is the track coming to them tonight, or do you think they just can't resist the bragging rights?
Well, I think everybody says, oh, we're not pushing for pole, we're just doing our laps. But, you know, it's a little bit of, a bit of chat between the teams. But definitely the track will be rubbering up. It will be getting better. It's cooler now. It's only going to keep improving at this time.
So we're going to have a quick look back at the highlights of what happened just a few minutes ago. And here we are then on board with that number 7 car of Sarazan. This is when he was pushing to try and get that pole position. Here we are going through Porsche curves. Right ahead of him, Alan McNish in the Audi. And this is going to be his big problem. He's not going to be able to get past this Audi as hard as he can try. So what happened then as they crossed the line? Can't quite do it. And at this moment in time, it is still Marc Genet, his teammate, who's ahead of him, has another go, but also out on track at that moment, the number 2 car of Marcel Fassler. Marcel, something of a dark horse this weekend. We haven't expected him to be having a go at pole. There's Wolfgang Ulrich, the good doctor, looking on to see what his guys can do. And really, again, just to remind you, they said we are not pushing for pole tonight. So here's Marcel Fassler through the Ford chicane, had a clear track, and bang, pole position. Great job there. And Marcel running a 3:25.961. So let's just hear what he said about that.
The car was really great to drive. I really enjoyed, especially through the Porsche corners. It was just a pleasure to drive. I didn't know how fast and which place I'm running for, but I was really pleased, and I'm really happy that the car is working that nice.
Just to remind you, this is for provisional pole. We've still got another 2 hours of running tonight. So let's hear what Sarazan had to say.
On s'est bien bagarré. Pour l'instant, bravo à Audi. Ils ont fait le temps au dernier moment.
Well, Nick Manassian congratulating his teammate Marcel Fassler first of all, then Sarazan said he had a car ahead of him, nothing he could do about it, got blocked at the end of the lap, and that's the reason why he lost out on that. That part of the track you just cannot pass on as you come out of Porsche curves. So Marcel Fassler, for the moment, certainly the hero of the moment, but we've got another 2 hours. Andy Priaulx then getting on the marbles, which have been put there by the Robertson Ford, which spun, and Andy, a huge impact at the Ford corner, and that it means we will not be seeing that 56 car again this evening. The 2 times World Touring Car champion getting out, looking at the car and walking away in disgust, and look what a mess that is. So will we see that on Saturday? I'm sure we will, but we certainly will not see it tonight, even though Charlie Lamb is the master of rescuing something from disaster. Well, back to tonight. This is the scene at Le Mans, and John Hindhoff, this is quite often the witching hour, even though it's only 10 in the evening here. Nice and cool, good for times, but again, Peugeot and Audi are telling us they're not going for pole.
Yeah, you don't believe that though, Mark, do you? That's what the PR people are telling you. Look at the faces of the guys whose jobs are on the line, the other drivers and the team management. That tells you everything that you need to know. We saw that at the end of the last session. You'll see it at the start of this one. And here's another thing as well. I look back through the records, and over the last few years, coming up to midnight has also been the opportunity to set pole position. So it might not be just in this first half an hour that we see people going for it. I think it'll very much depend how the weather and how the traffic plays out. And you never know, somebody might just bolt on a set of option tyres, to use F1 parlance, and go for it just as the session is about to end. And I wouldn't put that past Sarazan for Peugeot and maybe rolling out a small Scotsman for Audi if it has to be done.
That was an interesting shot. That was Anthony Davidson in the number 7 car. Was he going slow, or was he just getting some heat into those tyres? He was passed at some speed, wasn't he, down there, Liz, on the Mulsanne?
Yeah, no, definitely. I mean, this is the time of night when we start to see everybody putting on maybe a slightly better, set of tyres and maybe having a bit of a go, because it's cooled off, the track's cooler, everyone's dialed into their line. This is the time when we usually see the likes of Stefan Sarrazin step it up and put in a crazy fast time. Now, for a lot of people that, maybe aren't used to watching Le Mans, they'd think, can't do a time that fast tonight, but a lot of times that's when the best times are shown. We're just seeing a fastest sector time by Romain Dumas, so is he bringing the charge forward as well?
Yeah, this is the car, of course, he crashed last night after the Gulf Middle East AMR car spun in front of him at Mulsanne, had nowhere to go. Romain Dumas in that car repaired, fastest time of the whole week so far, 32.1 in the first sector. But also we're looking at Ant Davidson. No, Ant Davidson's backed off a bit. Tom Christensen on his last lap did a fastest sector time there too, but Dumas is the man to watch at the moment in last year's winning car.
And Romain is so fast when he puts in the times, and he was saying last night that a lot of people were worried, I think, about damaging the Audi in that accident he had, but he said these cars are so strong that it really was just a matter of repairing the nose, and the car is absolutely fine. And I think he's making it pretty clear right now that the car really is just fine.
Yeah, well, this is a clip-on nose, of course, on the Audi, isn't it? That whole front section. It's a
clip-on gearbox as well this year, as we see Jackie Hicks in the Kronos pit, the MDS Mark VDS pit rather. Just a quick thought about Romain Dumas. Don't forget they lost a lot of time in the first part of tonight's session with a power steering problem, possibly as a result of last night's accident. They were just doing a bit of fiddling with the front end of the Benoit Treluet Audi as well, as that was sitting in pit lane. Just minor adjustments. And talking about tyres, as you and Liz were there, Mark, Ant Davidson was telling us at Sebring earlier on in the season that these new tyres, particularly having the bigger tyres on the front, how you treat them early on the outlap and how you get them up to temperature, absolutely crucial as to how it works. And there is a spin by the 7 Peugeot. That is Ant Davidson.
Yep.
And he's managed to pick a part of the circuit at the Ford chicane where he hasn't hit anything, so he clearly was trying to start a good lap or finish a good lap. He's managed not to hit any of the speed bumps there as well. He's done a pretty good job there of not damaging the car. If you're going to spin there. Now, what's he done to his tyres though? Those tyres that I was just saying he told me he had to look after.
One would assume he was going to go into the pits, but he didn't. He's continued on.
Well, we saw Sarrazin spin in the first session, didn't we? And he carried on and actually did his fastest lap.
Well, a lot of times it just depends on the level of the spin, how fast you're going before.
Here comes Romain Dumas. Is this good enough for pole at the moment? He's being fastest.
I think it is. This is going to be pole.
Oh, and he goes to the top. Yeah, 25.7.
He's done it. We thought he was going to bring the charge forward, and he definitely has. Now let's see what is going to be the response from the other Audi, or indeed Sarrazin.
And all the Peugeots, yeah. So anyway, we're being joined at the moment. We've got Johnny Molam here, hot from the Lotus team. So
some good news on the timing screens as well, Mark. I've just noticed that our new timing partners this year at Le Mans have now put up the fastest times in all session as the fast time.
Right.
So earlier on it was just the sector time, the session times, but that Johnny Kane time is the one that was posted yesterday for Straka Racing. So what you're seeing there now is actually the provisional grid as you're looking at it.
Right.
So if you're watching online, that will also be the case as well if you're at lemans.com.
It's Audi 1-2 as we go on board again with the number 9 car now. This is Stéphane Bourdais. Seabass, the man from Le Mans who had pole position here last year. Last year's pole was a 3:19. They're going to be nowhere near that. They're 6 seconds off that pace this year. That's how much the cars have been slowed down, Liz.
Yeah, no, I think they've definitely achieved what they wanted to this year. They've been trying to slow the cars down a little bit, because over the last few years we've seen a huge increase in speed. I mean, I remember back when I was doing LMP2, and we could be near enough to pole on like a 3:47 or something. You'd never believe that now, because the times have gotten so much quicker. But I think we've brought them all together a little bit more this year as well, and I hope that means we're actually going to have a better race. Still, I think Diesel has just got that edge above, despite everything that the officials have tried to do to bring people together. John, you've got a point.
Yeah, just a few more improvements. Tom Christensen's just done his best time, although that's been rather peeled into significance now after that 3:25.7 by Dumas. 3:26.4 and 3:26.7 for Bourdais. And let's go down to the pit lane for Mike Rockenfeller.
Mike, you're about to enter into the car. You had the pole position for the moment. Everything is according to plan.
Well, so far everything is according to plan, that's true, but you never know. It's still a long qualifying, and to be honest, we don't care so much. It would be nice to be on pole, no doubt, but it doesn't mean anything for the 24-hour race. So we go through our program. Romain is qualified now because he couldn't do his 3 laps in the night practice yesterday due to the incident we had. So that's the most important thing, and now we keep working, and hopefully we are good prepared for the race.
I see you with a lot of confidence these days, maybe also because of the maiden victory in DTM.
Well, I'm always confident. We have a new car, R18, and I think it's running well so far. It's a long race, so a lot of things can happen. We know that. Definitely DTM to win there is always nice, and it doesn't hurt.
Happy stint. Thanks very much.
So Mike Rockenfeller very bullish about that. Of course, he can be at the moment because Audi are right at the top. Further down the grid, somewhere down the grid, Johnny Molam. Wonderful to see.
Yeah.
No, that's a bit harsh.
I was going to say, right,
look,
hang on, I'm leaving.
Let me tell you how wonderful.
The shortest interview on record. Liz, can you just pull the dagger out of my back, please? Thank you so much.
Right between his shoulder blades.
Yeah. Johnny, I think everyone is so pleased to see Lotus back. There's a huge history of Lotus here, and it is the archetypal British car, but it's been quite a struggle, hasn't it?
It has. It's been a minor miracle, actually. We've got 2 cars here, and unfortunately we had a problem with the engine this morning. We actually had a spark plug failure, so that put paid to literally on the outlap. That stopped us going into this session, which was a real shame, because yesterday the 7.4 that I did was on full tanks and not going for a time at all, and they told me that I was going to be able to go just as we went into darkness on low fuel and soft tyres, so it's a shame not to be able to do it.
Right, well, we're going to take a quick break, and then we're going to stay with us, Johnny. We're going to come back to you as long as you haven't run away in the gap. And, so stay with us after these messages. Back in a moment here, live on Eurosport. Final qualifying at Le Mans. You're back live with Eurosport. As you come back to us, we are under red flag. The luxury Ferrari has just gone off. That's the Beltoise car. Anthony Beltoise, the 58 car. He shares with Jean-Denis Delatraz and rookie Francois Jakubowski. So as you can see, into the tyre wall, into the conveyor belt there. They've just talking to him in the car. I don't know if he's going to try get that car back on the track, but he's got a flat rear, hasn't he? There, or is it just stuck in the gravel?
Have we had an accident with the 007 as well? Because that's showing off at post 76, which is not a million miles from there.
In the gravel bed, yeah. 76 is Mulsanne corner, so anyway.
Maybe that's Mulsanne.
Yep, so
well.
Everything's suspended at the moment. Johnny Molam with us tonight, just having a quick chat about the Lotus programme. So going back to Lotus, the cars look absolutely stunning. They when they're running okay, they're really good to drive, yeah? Sorry.
Yeah, absolutely. Everyone says that, Mark, and they're going. I have to say, it's going really well. I mean, everyone's going to say, yeah, you would say that, but I have to say that cornering-wise, we're doing very, very well with the car, and we've got a few issues. We got a little bit of a break after Spa with the waivers with the ACO. We got 50 kilos out and a larger restrictor, which is a little way towards what we need. And we just carried on working. We did a shaker rig test for the first time with the car literally a week ago, and addressed all those damper settings onto the car. And like I said before, I mean, yesterday to do the 7 that we did without even any effort at all on the fuel, I think we could have got into the 4s or 5s, which, if you think about it, is only 5 or 6 or 5 seconds off of what the very fastest GT cars are doing. I think our race pace will be a lot closer, but we tried in Spa to go as quickly as we could, and we've discovered that we can't compete with them at this stage in the development of the car at their own game. So we were actually going for a bit of a conservative approach and a bit of a race pace. And unfortunately, with that engine issue, we were going to have to change obviously the engine out anyway, but not to be able to to go for a time is really just something that affects me personally. In terms of the team, it's actually not that major a drama, really.
Yeah, I mean, you're very much in the same situation as Aston Martin, aren't you? You've got a new car. It's a development.
Absolutely.
It's going to take 2 or 3 years to get it up to the.
Well, hopefully not 2 or 3 years, but it's certainly going to take. It's certainly going to take this season as a development season, and hopefully going into next season. And we've made leaps and bounds, but you would expect that. I mean, we've gone from being 10, 11 seconds off at pre-qualifying to now, you know, at best, even though we haven't gone for a time and everyone else has, at worst, we're going to be 7 or 8 seconds off. So we've made a big step forward, and we'll continue to do so. Obviously, you get to that last second, that's the hard one to find. But I'm under no illusions that just to get to the finish for Lotus back at Le Mans for the first time in a long time would be a huge achievement, and that's what we've got first and foremost in our mind. And I've done this race often enough to know that you're actually competing against yourselves and the circuit, and your competitors kind of take care of themselves.
Yeah, I mean, you're doing this race obviously with Jonathan Hershey, who's been here before. He's also well known to most of our viewers from the Renault Megane Euro Cup. But for James Rossiter, this is a whole new ball game, of course. Yeah,
I mean, James is a great teammate to have, and obviously both James and I are actually factory Lotus drivers, whereas Jonathan, who drives with us, who also an excellent driver, is a Jet Alliance driver. And the partnership between Jet Alliance and Lotus is an excellent one, and it's kind of a nice mixture of customer and development program put together, and Lotus have a big input into the development of the car.
Stuart?
Yeah, Johnny, you know, we drove together at Creation in 2008, a few years ago.
Yeah, I remember it well.
And no, just tell the viewers, you know, 3 years ago you were driving an LMP1 prototype here at Le Mans. Now you're in a GT2 car. Just explain, you know, the differences and what it's like to be, you know, we're not going to be able to talk today because we're going to go for an interview with Stefan Sarazan in a minute. But, you know, when we come back, could you just tell us the differences between the two?
Yeah, we're just going to Stefan Sarazan.
Stefan, you gave it a good go just at the end of the session before. How close are you to the Audis? You satisfied?
Satisfied, not really, because I lost the first place, so we pushed really hard, and I had a big traffic at the end of the lap, so I lost a lot. It was possible to do a very good lap time, but it's like that, you know, it's a game. Big traffic here at Le Mans, so with the GT car it's not so easy. And now the main target is to prepare the car for the race, so we have a very good balance. Nico will go for the last test, but it will be very interesting.
How important is the pole position for you? Because everybody keeps on telling us it's only the race setup, but still you don't want to give the first 3 slots away to the Audis, and same for them.
Yeah, exactly. You know, quali is not so important because we go for 24 hours, but we are all the time fighting for the pole. So it was an exciting game, you know, new tires, low fuel. But with this big traffic, it's a lottery, you know. So one time it's okay, one time not. And today for me it was not working. So it's a shame, but it's like that.
All the best for the rest of the session.
We're getting news down from the pits that the red flag went out because of an accident between Beltoise in the luxury car and the 009 Aston Martin factory car of Christian Klein. And apparently, even worse, there's a line of oil along the final stretch of the Mulsanne Straight. Johnny?
Yes, that'll be fun, won't it? I mean, that's the thing, as Stuart knows from driving here, there's nothing worse than driving here at night in the rain, except coming across what you think is a perfectly good bit of dry tarmac, and suddenly there's either some fluid down, whether it's oil or coolant or something like that, and that can really cause a huge accident. So they're going to have to deal with that, and that might be the reason it's such a long wreck, because certainly from the pictures we saw on screen, neither car looked particularly badly damaged.
Yeah, we've been talking all evening about how the track's rubbering up nicely tonight. This is going to, of course, set that all back.
I mean, I tell you, talking about rubbering up, before I answered Stuart's earlier question, I mean, yesterday when I went out, first of all, the track was incredibly you got a dirty mind, Mark, you really have. The track was incredibly dirty and slippery, and the car was almost undrivable. And then I went out again sort of an hour and a half later, and the grip level, just driving literally on the right kink out of the pit lane, I could feel I had like 5 times the grip level. But going back to what Stuart was saying, I mean, it's incredibly difficult here at Le Mans, and you'd think, wouldn't you, over the length of track that Le Mans is, that you wouldn't have traffic. And I saw Stefan Sarazan interviewed just now, and I have to say I totally agree with him, because not only did he get held up in traffic on 1 lap, he actually had pole 3 times, and all 3 occasions he got held up. He lost probably 6 tenths going through Indianapolis behind a prototype, which would have put him on pole, because that was his time that he actually set his best time. But the lap before that, he actually got held up by the Jota Aston Martin going through the final chicanes. He must have lost 1.5 seconds behind that car and only marginally missed out on getting pole. So I can understand why he'll be gutted, but fortunately for him, he's had pole here before. And that just shows you how difficult it is to deal with the traffic situation here with the GT cars and the LMP cars. I've been in both. At the moment, being in the Lotus, to be quite honest with you, all I actually really need to do in that car, and this is no disrespect to anybody, especially not Lotus, but is keep a really good eye on my mirrors. Although I did actually overtake a few GT cars yesterday, so that was nice. But the prototypes, when they come, it's Audi and Peugeot, like in one big train. You've really got to watch out.
Yeah, so we just saw the shots there of the commissars sweeping up the oil dust on that stretch of Mulsanne. We had that collision. We're going to take another break. Johnny, thank you very much for being with us.
Thank you very much.
All the best with the rest of the weekend.
Thank you.
That way.
You're back with Eurosport. We're still under red flag period. 1.5 hours still to go. And here's Christian Klein, the Austrian driver, bringing back this car with a broken rear suspension following that collision with the luxury racing Ferrari of
Anthony Beltoise.
Yeah, as we said. And that luxury car, of course, both luxury cars being run by Risi Competizione. They're not here this year as a factory, as a Ferrari team, but they are giving all assistance they can to luxury. We've hired them for the weekend. Giuseppe Risi and his crew doing hopefully a very good job here. Stuart, Liz, we're back still under this red flag. How much is this going to affect any chance of improving tonight?
It's certainly not going to do these guys any good. You know, a red flag really does interrupt your program, but you know that's part and parcel of it. The main thing people will be worried about is how much oil is down. You know, as Johnny was saying, it's not very nice here driving in the night in the rain, let alone, you know, if there's oil down as well. Obviously it's not raining, but you're going to come across that oil. It's going to be very, very slippery. They will put cement dust down, but it's going to change the characteristics of the track completely around that area, and it's going to slow it down. So whether or not a time can be sent, I'll probably be proved wrong. It normally happens, but you know, it's going to make things a lot more difficult now.
Well, at least we do have a fair bit of time left in this session, but you know, absolutely, this is going to be the primary thought in these drivers' minds now, is how much oil is down. You know, how soon is the line going to be back to normal? It's going to be, this is the biggest thing that affects drivers on the track. And, you know, I have a vibrant memory of coming around the backside on my way to Indianapolis and getting, luckily, the radio feed from my team screaming at me that there was oil down on the entry to Indianapolis, and I missed it by about half an inch and watched about 4 other cars crash into the wall. So it's, you know, it comes down to, again, what we said earlier, and working with your team and having a good, strong team behind you. But this is not going to be what anybody wants in night qualifying, is it, Stuart?
No, as they say, it's the caption on the screen says that's Jean-Marie Bruni in the 51 car, but I can assure you that's Giancarlo Fisichella.
Yep. Yeah, it is.
So don't worry about that. That's Fizzy in the car, and he'll probably be putting a set of new tyres on that car to try and you know, get that car further up the order, because Augusto Farfus has pipped Bruni's previous effort of a 58 dead, and he's now on a 57.592. So send Fizzy out on a new set of bags and see what he can do.
Yeah, they've actually all dipping down again, aren't they? They've bettered last night's times. The 58.4 was pole, which went to Dirk Muller, and so Farfus is on a 57.5, and Bruni 58.0. Andy Prio, before he crashed that car, 58.426. So all 3 of those cars had bettered last night's provisional pole, so looking very, very quick out there. But Andy Prio, no news from the pits yet. We know there's a lot of damage to that BMW. It takes a while to get the car back from Parc Fermé, because they like to measure the cars for some reason in Parc Fermé, make sure they comply with the regulations, even though the car is pretty comprehensively wrecked. They did that yesterday with the 2 or 3 of the cars that were brought back in a really wrecked state, including the Straka for some reason. It had only 2 wheels on it.
Well, we have some interesting news for our American Corvette fans out there. They're not running anymore tonight. All is fine, but on the 73 car, race engine and diff are going in now. So they've clearly done enough to make themselves feel comfortable for the race, and they're just getting on top of things. Vet number 74 has only changed the diff as they've run out of time. So they'll be changing the engine before the morning warm-up on Saturday. But sounds like all going to plan there for that team, just trying to get dialed in for the race, feeling good about what they can do, and ready to push hard on Saturday.
Just while we're on the Corvette thread at the moment, Liz, Doug Feehan did today say they will be looking at the World Endurance Championship with considerable interest, so we could see Corvette racing all over the world.
They did indeed, and that would be fantastic, wouldn't it? I would love to see Corvette racing spreading its way around the world. They have such a huge world following anyway. After the years of what they did in Le Mans and the American Le Mans series, it would be great to see them go worldwide.
But the car we're seeing here this weekend, it's the last year for this model, isn't it? In that shape. It's going to be a new shape Corvette next year, I understand.
Yeah, I feel like I'd struggle myself to keep up with what new shapes and regulations are going to have. It seems like it changes every 5 minutes, to be honest.
Well,
but
this is their 10th anniversary since they came in this form to Le Mans. The car hasn't hugely altered in that time, has it?
No, it hasn't that much. I know this year, like I was saying earlier, they've changed. They've changed little things, obviously, and we're GT1 to GT2 and that sort of thing. But a big thing this year is the addition of the paddle shift and the change of some of the electrics, and the wheel is very complex now. And I think they're trying to eke every little bit of speed out of that car so that nothing's getting in the way of how they drive the circuit.
Stuart, you just saw that quick replay, the #1 car going out. I still think it clipped that Gulf AMR Aston Martin we saw spinning on the first lap. Did you see how close he was? And he went wide. He went very, very wide at Tetra Rouge, clipped the marker posts and clipped the Aston on the way, I think.
I'd like to say I saw it,
right.
But I was looking at Hindy typing something on the screen there, so I wasn't watching at all.
You're honest. But, well, I mean, let's be honest. This is what makes sports car racing what it is. We have to deal with traffic. There used to be 4 classes of racing. Essentially, we've got 3 classes, but 2 different levels of drivers in our last class. So there is forever the issue of traffic for these drivers. So it's very often that something may go wrong in passing. You're just looking here at Corvette racing, doing exactly what we just talked about, working away deep inside the car. So everything seems to be going to plan here for this number 73 Corvette. And they should hopefully be well rested and ready for our race on Saturday.
Yeah, and John Hindhaugh just pointing out, is it Tim?
Danny Biggs.
Danny Biggs, yeah, sorry, the big guy. Looks like a bouncer, but in fact he's the man who really holds the whole
Maybe
Corvette
he's a bit of a bouncer as well, you never know. Corvette bouncer.
Yeah, depends how well paid he is. Well, still this hiatus while we're waiting for the commissars to finish their work down on the Mulsanne Straight. They've still got the luxury car waiting picked up there, and it looked like it had both of its left-hand tyres deflated, so I guess it's got to wait for a lift onto a truck. We've seen Christian Klein come back with a flat tyre. We're going to take another break, and when we come back, hopefully, just hopefully, we might have some action, although nothing is showing on the screens yet as to when we can expect the green flag. So get yourself another beer or coffee and stay with us on Eurosport. You're back with Eurosport. We will be restarting the action in 1 minute. We've had a red flag out for a collision between one of the factory Aston Martins, that of Christian Klein, and the luxury racing Ferrari of Anthony Beltoise.
What we are finding out, that I don't think it was a collision. I think they both actually spun on some oil that's been laid down, and we don't know who's laid that oil down at the moment, so it'd be interesting to find that out. But so apologies if we've offended anybody. They haven't collided. They've just gone off on their own accord because they've hit oil.
Right, and in fact, with Klein's car, as we saw, there was no damage to it apart from what looked like a half-deflated rear tyre.
And in fact, it could have been oil from one of those cars, and the other one subsequently could have spun on it. So we'll just have to wait and see. Let's go for an interview.
Lucas Luhr, a lot of accidents here and lots of interruptions so far in all the sessions. How do you deal with it?
Well, we're having some issues as well. Jörg, before in the last practice, he went out, the car spun in front of him, and there was no way to go, so he hit him. We had a little bit of damage in the front. Now the car is back together, and hopefully we can do some setup work, which we need really to do for the race. Yesterday we lost the session, so we are not as good in shape as we'd like to be.
A lot of people have you down as one of the favorites in the category. How do you deal with that pressure?
Well, at the moment it doesn't look like it, but it's a 24-hour race. A lot of things can happen. We just use the rest of the time to prepare for the race, and I think at race pace we should be quite okay. We just don't have the pace for one lap.
Just a quick word about the Ferraris from A, of course. What do you think about them?
Well, to be honest, I mean, all the competition in a GT car is tough. It's not just a Ferrari. There's other manufacturers which are really quick as well. So we need to see how their race pace is. But for sure, they have also a very strong lineup, and we see how they go in the race.
All the best for the remaining session. Thank you.
Thank you.
It was interesting speaking with Lucas before, and he was saying what a big difference it was going from the prototype from last year and back into a Porsche again. He said that when he first went out, he really had to dial himself back a bit because he went charging into the brake zones and was finding that he was suddenly realizing he wasn't on double carbon and didn't have all that downforce. So
I had a bit of weight behind him as well.
Yeah, he said he was going in all loose, and he said he's really had to rein it in and just back himself up a little bit and calm things down again.
So Lucas, as we heard, showing that Flying Lizard car with Pat Long and Jörg Bergmeister, absolutely fantastic design. This Troy design with all the flags on it, flying flag. Someone that said it should be called a flying blizzard, everything flying like that. But no, we are under green now. We're all getting ready to go out, and that 80 car of Lucas Luhr, Jörg Bergmeister at the wheel now, in 13th at the moment, following that accident they had. We did see a shot earlier of the front end of the car being rebuilt in the garage. Stuart, this is a challenging time now. Full darkness.
Yeah, it is challenging, but you know, these guys are ready. Interesting enough, coming back to Lucas Luhr, most recent winner of the round of the GT1 World Championship at Silverstone in Nissan GTR with Michael Krum. You know, he's been doing very well in that championship. Got teammates to some British aces, Jamie Campbell-Walter, Peter Dunbrek, Warren Hughes, and you know, Nissan, big presence at Le Mans, but they've also got a very, very big presence in the GT1 World Championship as well.
Yeah, Nissan having a really big push this year, being a part of a lot of things, and what a fantastic win it was for Lucas. It was a really hard-fought win. We're just saying, I think, is that an oil line we're seeing around the track? That is not in a nice place.
Yeah,
that's right on the line.
It's just after, it's from the second kink on the way down to Indianapolis.
So possibly that prototype we've just seen come in possibly could have been spreading some of that oil. It looks to be nearly on the line in a lot of places, which is not ideal. It's not a big spread of oil, but it's enough. Any oil on a racetrack is not good.
Tom Christensen then was getting all set to go out and do one of those banzai laps when this all happened, so he's now out of the car, and that number 3 car is in the hands of Dindo Capello, who's running 5th at the moment. That's the car we're on board with.
And that is entry into the Porsche curves where all that oil is. I can't actually think of anywhere that would be worse for oil, maybe except for the 2 flat lefts in the middle. Wouldn't you think, Stu?
You know, it's very, very bumpy. You go from road to track. That track's only used once a year. And there's green flags being waved now as
yellow flags, in fact, which begs the question: has someone else gone off?
That looks green to me. I'm going to debate this.
I think that's yellow.
You're all colourblind.
You wouldn't be sure too.
You would on the first lap of a session when the red flag's out. There's greens at every marshal's post.
We'll call it a draw then.
I don't know. We'll see. Now that's green.
Right. So Dindo comes over the line to start his first flying lap.
Clearly, we're all colourblind.
I'm not colourblind. Don't have a go at me, Halliday. Crikey.
Calm down, then, Stuart. Take a deep breath.
I tell you, it's not an easy job being a referee in this box up here.
Stuart 1, Halliday 0.
John Hindhoff is looking on totally bemused. He's not having anything to do with this. So there's the positions at the moment then. Marcel Fassler still on that provisional pole position. Mike Rockenfeller at the wheel at the moment. Benoit Trullier in the second of the Audis. And of course, the interesting thing about this, those 2 Audis are the junior cars in effect, because the senior car, McNish, Capello and Christensen, is languishing down in 5th place behind the next 2 Peugeots.
Oh, so don't let them hear you call them the junior cars. I'm not sure if that works for me, Mark. I don't know. I think they're all pretty up there. No. Maybe just not the right terminology, but I know what you mean. Definitely, yeah, absolutely. But certainly the car with McNish, Christensen and Capello, they are a tried and tested group, aren't they? They've been around, they've won it, they've done it, they've absolutely done the job. So amazing to see them here again this year.
But huge support for McNish. John and I were having a cup of tea at Audi with some of us a bit stronger, and there was 2 journalists here we got talking to, one from the Scottish Daily Mail, the other from the Scottish Sun, and for both of them, 3rd time they've been here, and they've been following Alan McNish for their Scottish National Daily newspapers, and they are so hooked on Le Mans now. They come back every year, and they want McNish to win, of course, and so Audi bring them over. But interesting, I mean, that is real reader power, that big papers in Scotland, and so much more publicity this year for Le Mans. Audi have done a huge job. The UEFA Cup final 2 weeks ago, they ran the LM24 3-minute ad just before the start of the game, and I mean, a number of my friends who've never been to Le Mans said, gosh, is that what it's all about? And really good job they've done this year.
Well, I think when it's the biggest push they've got for the car all year, they've got to make the most of it, and this is their opportunity to put out the advertising. And in fact, it was actually made in 3D, so this just shows what a huge advertising ploy they've got this year. And
so that means it was as wide as Alan is tall.
Yeah, there we go. I'm sure Alan enjoyed that.
The most famous 5'4" Scotsman in the world. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah.
We'll play in the cinemas with the new Harry Potter movie. What is that, Alan, or is that the? Oh my word! I could have said something a bit rude just then, but I like Alan, so I'm not going to.
No. Let's. They'll find their form. Don't you worry. Sebastian Bourdais, of course, behind them, who's on pole last year, and that'll be even harder for Sebastian to take, won't it? There he is.
And back to the qualifying. We're going to see very soon whether this oil is going to make a huge difference or not. These cars will be coming up to complete their first flying lap now, and so we'll see. If they're in the ballpark, then fastest laps can be made.
Well, they've got the right man on board, haven't they?
If they're not in the ballpark, then we know there's a lot of oil down, and there's not much chance of doing a lap.
Simon Pagenaud, who of course really made his name in the American Le Mans series from fantastic drives 2 years ago, and out he goes then. But Liz, you picked it up, that it's not just one oil streak, is it? There's 2 or 3 around the circuit at the moment.
It does appear to be just sort of a thin oil trail around the track, which isn't the end of the world, but if you catch that wrong on a slick tire, then that's the end of your grip. I mean, we talk about these slick tires, that is your contact patch, and you need every ounce of that grip with these high downforce cars, and to have any portion of it go loose is just a complete detriment, especially in the Porsche curves. Looks like we are going to go for an interview down to the pits any minute now.
Yeah, we're just seeing Ulrich, Wolfgang Ulrich.
Wenn Auto vorbeifährt, verstehe ich Sie nicht. Sagen Sie mir die Frage gleich.
Wie es ums Auto steht, wie sehr das schwierig ist, es zu reparieren.
Just waiting to go to an interview down the pits. We're not quite sure who it's with at the moment, but there's a bit of technical trouble down there. But at the moment, as we're watching, we're riding with the #1 car of Mike Rockenfeller. This is what the Mulsanne looks like at night. Just to catch up, P2, we haven't mentioned it lately, but Sohei Ayari is on pole position at the moment. They knocked Straka off their perch. Straka stay in second place, even though they've packed up and gone home now. Their mechanics up for 40 hours at rebuilding the car, which Nick Leventis crashed spectacularly at Zandvoort last night. Right, we are going back down to the pits now, and let's see who we're going to speak to.
Dr. Tyson, there's a lot of work to be done on the car. How much of a throwback is that?
Well, it's disappointing. It wasn't necessary. There was a lot of gravel on the track, but no yellow flags. Not only Andy, but 3 other cars went off as well. Andy hit the barrier frontally, so there's a lot of damage at the front. It's bent, and well, but tomorrow is a rest day. It should be a rest day. We'll get the car fixed in time.
It's a shame because especially yesterday Andy was doing such a great job.
Yeah, he did a fantastic lap yesterday, but he's still on P3 now, so we should be okay.
We've discussed it before. We have the impression that especially in the GT category, most of the drivers are more busy looking in the rear view mirror than actually concentrating on driving.
Yeah, that's true. It's very specially in Le Mans because the big prototypes are here as well. It's the stage of the prototypes, so our drivers have to look into the mirror. In 2 weeks' time at the Nürburgring, it will be the other way around.
So we're looking forward to that. Thanks for talking to us.
Thank you.
Very good point Mary Tyson's making there, that this is Le Mans this weekend. 2 weeks' time they've got the Nürburgring 24 hours to run, and they're going out to win that, of course, BMW. Here they're not winning, they're looking in their mirrors all the time.
Yeah, but I mean, the cars are incredibly quick here. They've been on pole in the BMW actually here, which is a huge improvement from last year. But it is difficult at Le Mans, especially because the closing speeds are absolutely immense between the prototypes and the GT cars. It is just insane. And a lot of the reason behind that is that we have such long straights. It's a big, long circuit. So the straights go on forever. The closing speeds, I can't even describe how crazy they are. They're just incredible. But yeah, BMW is in fact the defending Nürburgring 24-hour champions. So
had a long chat with Charlie Lamb this afternoon, and one of the things he said was that they've really benefited from winning that race last year, because they were effectively running 3 different spec of cars last year. One for the American Series, one for the Nürburgring and the VLN, and one for the ACO races, and now they've only got the 1 car to run effectively. We'll be back with more from Le Mans on Eurosport. It's the dash for pole. Stay with us.
You're back with Eurosport. You're live for what is just coming up to the final hour of qualifying. This 6 hours of qualifying over the 2 nights, and this is just about starting the final hour. Just to update, if you're just joining us, on pole at the moment, Audi number 1 car, alongside it the number 2 Audi, then 2 Peugeots, the number 8 and number 7 cars. P2, that's in the hands of Saye Ayari for the Reika Nissan powered car from the Straka Honda of Johnny Kane, Nick Leventis and Danny Watts. Danny Watts having set the car's quickest time last night. Looking further down, BMW provisionally hold the GT Pro pole, where Augusto Fabart was setting that time, ahead of Giancarlo Fisichella for Ferrari, so everything to play for there. If you're just joining us, Andy Priaulx heavily crashed the sister BMW earlier this evening, and looking further down, GT Am, that car, the 61 car that's going to be on pole, AF course car, that time set by Marco Ciocci. But on board at the moment, Sean Paul Breslin. That may not be familiar to a lot of you, but Sean runs in the VLN series in Germany, the Nürburgring long distance series. He'll also be at the Nürburgring 24 hours, which John Hindhoff was just talking about. I guess you've come across Sean.
Yeah, he's a VLN champion. He's probably the best British GT driver that nobody's heard of. Smashing love as well, and he'll be at the Nürburgring in a couple of weeks' time. We're going to go down to the pits now to Signatech Nissan and to another lad who's in the early stages of his career. 18 months ago he was sitting on a sofa playing video games, entered the GT Academy by Nissan along with 30,000 other people, won a prize drive in the 24 hours at Dubai, and Nissan thought he was so good they've kept him on and run him in a series in Europe, and now he's driving a P2 car in just his 2nd season of racing. By the way, 1.3 million people entered the competition the second year when they saw the kind of response that Lucas Ordonez got. The young Spaniard has been making really good strides this week. He was less than 3 seconds a lap away from Frank Mayer's time earlier on this evening in the Signatech Nissan Oreca. Nissan about to up their game, we hear. A coupe on the cards from them and a full works effort with a Oreca built car, depending on who you listen to, is either about to run or has already run, and that car supposedly the state of the art for the regulations that we have, and apparently we're going to go down to the pits and talk to him in just a moment. It's the longest 30 seconds I've had in my life.
Meanwhile, let me just tell you that the 58 car team manager, that's the luxury Ferrari which Anthony Beltoise is driving. He's been summoned to race control.
That was the car that had the incident at Mulsanne Corner, and of course
Christian Klein's Aston Martin.
Yeah, Christian told us that it wasn't his oil that he went off on, and there was no contact, so that was quite interesting. It's spelt luxury racing, of course, but pronounced Mango Grove throat wobbler. It's a 70s reference for those of you back in the UK.
Yeah, I think that's been lost on me.
Yes.
You're too young.
Too young.
Where's my Lucas Ordonez interview that we were promised?
Well, he'll be along quite soon. Lucas, by the way, had never been a gamer. He just saw this advert and thought, well, I'll have a go at that. Had to go and buy a PlayStation, had to go and buy Gran Turismo 5, and suddenly found this is what he dreamed of. Played for 2 hours a day for 5 weeks and then entered.
I saw him winning the boot camp and the championship at Silverstone in a single seater in the wet round the store circuit, and it was absolutely blowing up a hoolie. We could barely stand up straight, And he wasn't just better than everybody else, he was head and shoulders better than everybody else. And it's remarkable to me that the lad's never had a race licence before, and it's an amazing way to find a racing talent, but they really have. He's also learned English. He took some time off his college course to take the full year and to exploit it as best as he could. And fair play to the lad, as I say, he was under 2 seconds off the pace of Frank Mayer, who was quickest in the first session for that car earlier on. Sohail Ayari, his other teammate. Obviously, Sohail not on Pescarolo's Christmas card list. He threw away a victory for Pescarolo here a few years ago by hitting everything except the safety car. Let's go down to Signatech now and to Lucas Ordonez.
Lucas, a perfect stint. It's your first Le Mans. How happy are you with that performance?
Well, the sim was great. Learning a lot in the night. It's quite tricky to drive in the night in Le Mans, and the most difficult thing is to, you know, when you look at the mirrors and look at the Audis or Perios coming, and you don't know how far they are, but getting good rhythm, consistent times, really fast times. The team is really doing a fantastic job, and we are first in the qualifying session, so really proud, and learning every lap I'm in the car, so really happy.
You have a fantastic story to tell, because you qualified thanks to a PlayStation game, and 4 years later you are in Le Mans racing the 24 hours. Tell us about it.
Well, it's been fantastic. Now, 3 years ago I was a normal student MBA master, and now here in the most prestigious race in the world, Le Mans 24 hours. So it's you know, a dream feeling. You know, I never expected to be here, and we are here in a top team, Signatech Nissan, in pole position now in the P2 class. So let's keep this great job, and we'll see later what happens.
We've been talking to some other pilots about the very bright lights from the Audis, the LED technique. How disturbing is it really when you're in the car?
Well, it's they've got massive lights. It's incredible, no? You see the mirrors and you only see a really brightness thing coming to you, and you need to manage how far they are. And yeah, I'm just concentrating in my drive, and when they come, they pass, and that's it. No? My objective is to keep in a good rhythm, very calm and steady during the laps, and that's what we're doing.
Muchas gracias.
Nada, thank
John,
you.
no cliche to say that. Oh, Martin's back here. Martin, well done. Good evening. Welcome back after supper. No cliche to say that Lucas is a marketing man's dream, isn't he? He's just everything you want from not just as a driver, but as a guy who really presents himself so well.
And we'll press that button, and then that works. Hooray! So yes, no, absolutely right. Yes, he drives a good race, he talks a good race, and that's just about, you know, all you can ask for. And it is a great story. And as we talked a little bit earlier about the new Gran Turismo 5 game on PlayStation, they have launched the new search for another GT star. So you can, you know, go out, buy a game, and if you really think you're good enough, Liz might be grilling you in a year or so's time at Silverstone and seeing if you can win the prize drive, like she will be for the European contenders in the next couple of weeks, and she has been for the Americans. And, you know, that's me, from the sofa to this, it's entertaining and looks quick enough when you're watching it on the TV. It must be really quite mind-bending to actually get into one of those cars.
Now, Lucas was just complaining there about the bright LED headlights from the Audis, and interestingly, this is a bit of a moot point at home at the moment, isn't it? The Road Research Laboratory is looking into complaints from people about the brightness of these LED lights as fitted to Audis, Mercedes, BMWs. So quite interesting what happens on the racetrack. It's been carried onto the road, but it's not all happiness.
Well, it's sort of come from the road cars, actually, hasn't it? Really, they debuted it at Le Mans after it was introduced in the R8s and the A6 series. So, yeah, I mean, you know, the Road Research Laboratory look at everything, don't they? And in the end, most of the time, they find it is an advance in road safety, because actually manufacturers want to make their cars quicker and safer, because they don't want people having problems with them. And the Road Safety Laboratory is there to help us. And actually the car manufacturers are there to sell cars, and they do that by making them an awful lot safer and quicker. So we're joined in the booth by the final key to our jigsaw puzzle this weekend. So delighted to welcome to to Eurosport and to Le Mans, Damien Faulkner. Now, Damien's done a few commentaries with me, but stuck in our studios in Feltham, so actually being here at Le Mans is a rare outing for him, so welcome to Le Mans.
Thank you, Martin. It's great to be here. I've been here actually, I think once or twice before with JH, Mr. Hindhaugh here, running around the paddock doing some networking. So it's great to be up here in the booth, and I've just looked out of the window and there's a fantastic view of the whole pit lane.
Yeah. It is a great view. Actually, it'd be nice just to bring a camera up occasionally and show people what we can see. You know, mostly when you're doing TV, you've got to look at the pictures on the screen, because otherwise the audience are looking at something and shouting at you, and you're randomly whittering on about something else. But here, being able to see the pit lane gives us so much more information that we can then feed into the commentary. So while you're looking at this Peugeot, we can see another half dozen cars and see what's going on with them. So we try and cover all bases. We're going to take a quick commercial pause. We'll be back in a moment. There's just under an hour remaining of this final qualifying session. Welcome back to Eurosport's live coverage of Le Mans. Those of you that have been with us from yesterday afternoon probably getting quite familiar now with the circuit in darkness, as the drivers are. Heading out onto Tertre Rouge is Audi number 3. That is currently messing up the numerical order, frankly. You know, car number 1 is first, car number 2 is second, car number 3 obviously therefore should be third, but it isn't at the moment. Alan McNish is at the wheel, and I would think now the darkness has fallen, unless suddenly they decide in about 50 minutes time to give them a set of qualifiers, that they may be pretty happy with their qualifying order. Jeremy Shaw, we were down watching proceedings earlier on, and obviously the red flag interrupted the session, and a couple of people have been asking, why did the clock not stop? Well, A, because it's not Formula 1 and everything else doesn't, you know, fall into line behind it, but most importantly, B, because at midnight the roads become public highways again by law, which kind of makes any more running of prototypes A, a little dodgy, and B, rather pointless if there are camions and your average, you know, Renault 5 pootling along. So that's why the clock doesn't stop, even if the cars have to. It's all right.
Was that a question?
No, it wasn't a question, as you easily identified. Now, both the driver of the 009 Aston and the 58 Luxury Racing Ferrari have been, or in fact both the team managers have been summoned to race control. Now, there could be two reasons. First of all, either race control are worried about the coming together or potential coming together between the two of them, or possibly because actually you're not supposed to drive around tracks when the red flags are out, although actually you are supposed to drive back to the pit lane. So it may be that possibly they had a bit of an argument with marshals who didn't want them to go any further, or, you know, which doesn't go down very well. Argue with a Frenchman in any situation, you're always on a bit of a sticky wicket. Drivers say there was no contact. Clean saying that he already spun, or he spun on the oil that was already down there. And actually, again, looking from onboard, either there's been a lot of tyre lockups from punters, or there's a lot of oil still down from the hysterics that were out earlier.
I think it's kind of a sort of an optical illusion in a way as well. It's just the way the lights pick up the sort of surface changes and the slight deviations in the, you know, in the rubber that has been laid down on the track. I think it's probably not quite as dramatic as it looks on board those cars. At least I hope that's the case, Damien, because if the track is in that sort of a shape, it wouldn't be a lot of fun at all out there.
No, I think as well from the onboard camera, you don't get the same sort of scope. It's more of a tunnel vision. And with these LED lights as well, they're very bright for a short space of time. So I think that light is just showing up sort of the undulations and the different patterns and colours.
Well, the drivers are reporting a lot of oil online from Mulsanne down to the Indianapolis section, which is, you know, again, 200 miles an hour plus in one of these quick cars. One of 3 or 4 places on the circuit that they get over 300 clicks. So yeah, you have to make sure you're straddling it, and the lines were, you know, we're showing quite a lot of it.
It's the team manager for 009 cars.
Well, yeah, they've taken the other one off, so the luxury team have obviously gone up, and 009.
But 009, not 007, because Clean's in 007.
Yeah. That's the Adrian Fernandez car, so they've obviously committed a massive problem. Times on the screen, those of you watching online at lemans.org, show the best time of everything so far. So not of this session necessarily, but best time recorded per car over Q1, Q2 and to date in Q3. So it's not necessarily the case that Nick Minassian's fast lap was set in this 2-hour period, because it in fact was set in the previous 2-hour period, but it is the case that Audi is still first and second, whichever way you slice it. So whether or not Peugeot come back at it, we had an interesting little conversation actually with Norbert Okenga, one of our German colleagues. He told us that the Audi engineers had categorically stated to him they have got engines in now that they will be racing on. They are the race units in. However, also talked to Gustav Busing just in the break, and he was saying that an Audi engineer had said to him, again, not to be named or pack drilled, that they were getting a little bit ticked off with that Sarrazin bloke being on the top of the pile, and if need came to it, there would be a car ready to respond. So it may not yet be over. We traditionally sort of quieten down in the final 2 hours of qualifying, and then if anybody really feels brave, just before midnight is the witching hour when cars may come back out on track again. Whether or not Audi will fire another lap in, whether or not Peugeot will, and then trigger a response remains to be seen. But actually, one of the things that we were looking at, and again, if you do look online, if you've got your laptop sitting beside, if you're going to watch this all night, then you may as well, because let's face it, you need to know what's going on. All 6 of the factory, the brand new factory cars, the diesel engine cars, are covered by less than a second, 9/10 of a second between the top 6, which is, again, you know, in Formula 1 that would be close on a 2.5-mile circuit. On an 8.5-mile circuit, this is unbelievably tight
and unprecedented in any of the classes. I'm absolutely sure. I haven't done the homework to figure that out, but there's no doubt in my mind. It is remarkable that they should be that close after all this time. I mean, they've all set times. They've all gone out and tried to do a qualifying lap. Some of them are sort of designated qualifiers, and some of them are not. But hey, to be all that close, I think is absolutely amazing. And the best time so far, it's a 3 minutes 25.799 seconds. And we've talked all the way for the last couple of days about how the ACO tried to slow the cars down for this year. The pole time in 2010 set by Sebastian Bourdais was a 3 minutes 19.711. So a little bit over 6 seconds slower this year compared to last. The outright qualifying lap record was a 3:18.5. That was set by Stefan Sarrazin in 2008. So, they're trying to slow the cars down. I think they wanted to slow them down a little bit more than this, though, didn't they, Martin?
Well, I think so. And actually, in comparison, the car that is 7th quickest is another diesel. That's last year's diesel Peugeot. That's Hugues de Schonach's Orica car. And that is very near, well, over 3.3 seconds slower than the slowest of the current generation of Peugeot cars. Of course, it's not quite the same, but on the other hand, it's not that much different from last year's car.
Well, yeah, right. And the stated goal, I think, of the ACO was to try and they didn't really want the cars doing any faster than 3 minutes 30. They made the changes to last year's cars, and that is exactly, as you said, what that 2010 car has done is a 3 minutes 30. And the best of the petrol engine cars, the new generation of cars, has done a 3 minutes 32. So
7
they're kind of well, yes, but they're kind of close to where they wanted to be.
Michael Waltrip, Le Mans rookie, how's it going so far?
Well, I'm all about the experience because I don't have the speed that I need. I'm very frustrated as a race car driver who's won races before. You just want to be on pace, and there are just so many turns to learn. I'm just not quite where I want to be, and I'm sad about that. But the Ferris wheel and all the rides and the pageantry, I love being here and being a part of it. I just want to go fast. I'm like Ricky Bobby. Have you heard of him? Want to go fast, I want to go fast.
That's nice. How is it working for you guys with the new Ferrari 458 and the difference in size between you and your 2 team guys?
Well, that's a challenge. I'm used to driving the 430, and Marco Ciocci is the fastest guy in amateur in their 430. He ran a 401. Rui, my partner here, my teammate, he ran a 402 in our 458. But for me, being my first time in the car, it just isn't doesn't handle as well as the 430 that I'm not as used to it. So, plus, I got a pretty good idea this is an expensive car, and if I err on the side of being conservative, I can learn. But if I overdo it and cause an issue, then that'll cut my learning short. So, I'm being very conservative, but I don't I got to pick up a lot of time, and I'm focused on that. Rui's made some adjustments to the car, and I believe that'll get me closer to where I need to be. It's been oversteering quite a lot.
Okay, what's your conservative guess for the race on Saturday, Sunday?
Well, we want to finish. We ran 3 24-hour races. We got a podium finish at Spa, finished third. That was a really amazing accomplishment for my second 24-hour race. At Dubai, I really was happy with my performance. We had some issues and finished 20th, but we did finish. So if we can finish and beat a couple of guys in our class, that would probably be as much as we could hope for. We just don't have the pace that some of the fast guys in the pro class have. We're in the pro class because that's how our car is qualified. It is not a reflection of a couple of the drivers for sure, because I'm not quite up to pro speed yet here at Le Mans.
Okay, then enjoy Le Mans.
I am, thank you.
Well, Jeremy, he really is, isn't he? You know, it's kind of odd for a Daytona winner and a man who has spent so much time racing as a professional like Mikey Waltrip to say, well, I'm not really a pro, but you know, as he said, he's done 3 24-hour races, and that's just about his endurance lot. You know, Damien, it's a lot of miles for a driver, but on the other hand, you know, you could go and do 3 weeks of testing in a NASCAR. You wouldn't expect to be on pole at Daytona 500, so there's a lot of time still to find.
Yeah, well, that's true, and I mean, this isn't the easiest circuit in the world either. It's over 8 miles long, which is considerably longer than any of the ovals in America, and they only turn left, of course. So, I mean, I think he needs a good driver coach here, doesn't he? Really?
Yeah, you're right. and you nail on the head there. I mean, he's an oval driver. You know, driving on an oval, driving on a road course is a very different kettle of fish. You know that, Damien.
Yeah.
You've done, you know, when you first went over to race in Indy Lights, what, 10 or 11 years ago now, the ovals are a completely different story for you.
I'm feeling really old now.
Can you imagine going back the other way, though? I mean, going from ovals, you know, left turn early tracks to driving on the road courses, and particularly, as you say, somewhere like this where you have to run a really low downforce on the car, so it doesn't give you anything like the feel through the corners that you'd be used to on most road circuits.
Yeah, and also, I mean, I know in NASCAR you have to brake a lot on some of the ovals, but it's a different sort of finesse that's required for example, some of the chicanes here, and some of the slower stuff, and of course the car is going to handle completely different, and you know, there are right-handers as well, so added to all the quick stuff as well, so it's an uphill challenge.
Yeah, what you've got here, you know, if you've raced Daytona, you've got a car optimized for Daytona, for the banking, for the speed. What you've got here is a car optimized for going 200 miles an hour plus, like you said, long straight, long straight, long straight, long straight, technical. So you've got a low drag, low downforce, high speed car that you're trying to wind around these medium to high and some very high speed corners here, where you need the downforce that you left back at the shop, because actually it'll kill you on the straight. So he's got the, you know, it's like having a road course car on an oval and an oval course car on a road circuit. It's just, you have to build the car to go fast in a straight line, and then you have to somehow survive the twiddly stuff. So it's very different from even from Spa, which is, you know, half the length. It's less of a compromise at Spa, and certainly less at Dubai as well. This is very difficult, and he was just saying, you know, it's just, he said, I can really push, and then if I make a mistake, that's it, we come back next year and I start learning again. If I'm conservative and sort of edge up towards finding the limit of myself in the car, then hopefully we'll get 24 hours to learn about this place, because otherwise it's going to be quite a short experience. And I think that's what every rookie thinks when it comes to, you know, I could really make a fool of myself here quite easily. Benoit Chalouillet has just gone faster again in the Audi number 2, is now at the top of the pile ahead of Audi number 1. Alan McNish has just brought the car in, handed over to Tom Christensen, who's gone out in that car. So I'm not sure whether we're going to see any more quick times from Peugeot, but Audi seem to be finding some pace.
And it was that third sector that Benoit Chalouillet set that went purple, the fastest time of all in that third sector. That's the most difficult one to get a clear run through, all the way through the Porsche curves, through the Ford chicanes. That's really tough. You've really got to struggle to get that good rhythm through that section and get a clear run with no traffic in the way.
45 minutes of qualifying still remains. We'll stay with it. Yeah, John, I would like you to find out what's happening with car number 8, because it has barely turned a lap. What did he have on before? See, that's still in there. They had 45 laps to begin this session. I think he's done 6 laps in an hour and 20 minutes, and it spent a lot of time in the garage here with the front end off being rebuilt. Welcome back, everybody. Peugeot number 8, a little bit of a question mark over that car. Stefan Sarrazin not renowned for throwing it in the scenery, yet in the first 2 hours this evening, before he managed to get a quick lap out of it, he'd been off into the gravel at the Dunlop chicane, he'd been off into the gravel at the first chicane, so and the tyres had done 7 or 8 laps, so it had done a lot of miles, Jeremy, and he binned it twice, and each time not going off on entry, but middle to exit of the corner, and that worries me a little.
Yeah, I just fancy they were making a lot of change to that car, just trying to get a better balance. Let's go back to Benoit Trollier. I mean, that was a sensational lap, I think, that he turned just a few minutes ago, and he just went a personal best in Sector 1 as well. So he's on another quick lap. Sector 2 wasn't quite as quick as he went before, but he's still on another good lap here in car number 2.
Looking down into the pit lane at car 55, this is the sole healthy BMW remaining after Andy Priaulx's shunt early on gravel, and that looks like an Audi going very quickly indeed. Blue flags waving is really quite irrelevant in the darkness, although the marshals do it. They have blue lights as well. And he's coming in as car number 2, coming into the pits then, but a very quick first sector time. Somebody was asking actually a little earlier on Twitter, how do you distinguish between the green and yellow flags when you're out there at night? Well, they have they have yellow lights anyway for yellow flag situations, so that does alert the drivers very notably at night. But the real trouble is when it's a bit too light for the lights really to be noticeable, but still very low sunlight and very hard to see anything else. And those are the hours that are dangerous, down into dark and back out. And of course it is a fairly short night here, so visibility tends to be predominantly in daylight, unlike at Daytona. Simon Pagenaud on pit road, the only Peugeot that's actually running at the moment, although Nick Minassian has just left the pits in car number 8. Alexander Wurz has gone back in for more adjustments. So do you think we might be seeing new nose going on there? Might be seeing maybe a little quick qualifying nose being attached with a couple of extra canards, the extra bit of gurney here and there, Jeremy?
I don't think we're done yet. I think there's still some excitement to come this evening. Perhaps not quite to that level, though. There's another improvement a little farther down towards the bottom end of the first page on our timing and scoring screen. Goes down to 1 through 24 on our starting screen. 22nd place is still a 007 Aston Martin. Stefan Muka is at the wheel of that car now. It's still running. At least that's the good. And in fact, he just improved his time. He got down to a 3 minutes 45.
Personal best second sector for that car as well.
That's right. So he's becoming more consistent now as well. They're still 20 seconds off the pace, but that's a lot better than they were yesterday when they were 30 seconds off the pace. So they found a lot of time today.
Now the other just to bring you up to speed with the 009, that missed a weighbridge when it came into the pits at last but one time, in fact, I think probably, and before the red flag, and was therefore they were summoned to the steward's office. And Hindhoff was asking the question, how many times has that car been weighed? Well, about as many times it's done laps, probably. So half a dozen. Switch on your lights, car number 15. That's a message to everybody on a motorway in the mist. But how could you not notice that you've got no lights? This is the
Pescarola Judd
Oak Racing's car. This is their P2 car.
It's going very slowly.
Very
slowly. Beside the guardrail.
Yeah, he's down on the off the edge of the track, isn't he? Now, that is somewhere on Mulsanne, I think. Looked like it might have been between the first and second chicanes.
Didn't look like he had any lights on that car, did it?
It didn't. It looked very dark.
Didn't particularly.
Can't be a lot of fun.
No, I wouldn't really be wanting to drive around here without lights in a road car, never mind at 200 miles an hour.
But getting back to Peugeot, it looks like there's a lot of chaos going on and nobody knows what's going on, but I get the feeling that within the team everything's under control, and like you say, Jeremy, there's going to be some action later on and they just don't want to play their cards too early.
Well, Trulier's had a quick wash and brush up. He heads back out again. Set of wets coming out for Audi number 1. That'll be like the Peugeots did to get them scrubbed in case it rains tomorrow.
Dominic, you're third in class at the moment. What's the program for the rest of the night?
For the rest of the night, my colleague will finish the session. He's still a bit away from the times-wise, so he's got to catch that up, and I'm not going to get into the car anymore. I think as third, we are not bad, because it does not really matter if you're starting first or third or whatever in your class, because in the end it just counts the regularity, and that's the important thing to win the race, not where you're starting it. It's not worth taking any risks and crash the car. It would be a lot of work and a lot of energy, which the mechanics would have to put into.
You're a Le Mans rookie for the 24 hours here. How was the experience so far?
It's a great experience. It's clear. It's a dream for everybody, I guess, for every pilot to do this once in his life. And like, if you would have asked me 2 or 3 years ago, I would have said no way I would do this once. But now I'm here, and I think it's a great thing. You know, I'm very impressed by everything, and with number of spectators and the team. Everybody's working together really well, and it's a real professional thing.
Okay, thank you very much.
Well, while Dominic Kreiheimer was chatting, car number 15, Sons Lights, managed to spin at Arnage. So no carnage at Arnage yet, as well, it wasn't in fact last night. It turns out it was absolutely at Mulsanne, according to Audi, their driver, their telemetry, and everybody else, despite what it looked like on the TV pictures.
Yeah, Dominic Kreiheimer was pretty impressive there, wasn't he? He's, of course, driving the number 48 car, the Team Orica Matmut Orica Nissan, 21 years old, from Matzi in Austria. Done a couple of years in the Formula Le Mans series, and you know, as in other series around the world, you've got GP2 to develop you for Formula 1. In North America, you've got Indy Lights that, of course, that Damien Faulkner did a couple or 3 years ago to prepare you for the Indy cars, and now the Formula Le Mans series came on board a couple of years ago, and there's quite a few drivers coming up through Formula Le Mans and into the prototypes. It really is a very good step.
Well, it is a great prototype educational class. They're pretty straightforward cars in terms of their construction. Got a big meaty Corvette V8 behind them, so they're decently quick, and it's not that far off an outright P2 car. Plus they sound great as well, so yeah, it is, you know, yeah, they do sound good. Anything with a Corvette motor sounds good, you know, and it is a good way of developing yourself as a prototype driver.
And in North America, they run as very much as part of the American Le Mans series this year, and it's a very strong class. There are not many cars, there's only half a dozen cars in the class in the American Le Mans series, but they're all very, very competitive, and the cars are pretty bulletproof. When they first ran at Sebring, nobody really expected them to finish, because they were originally kind of designed for 1 or maybe 2 hour races at the most, but they've proved themselves in the main to be pretty reliable and a very good training ground for the bigger prototypes.
On board Damien Faulkner with the number 7 Peugeot, and you can see the prototype in front is either another Peugeot or an Audi, because there is nothing at all to choose between them. Anything else would have been completely gobbled up. In this case, it seems that actually the car in front is just pulling away. So this says it's Peugeot number 7 on an outlap, Alex Wurz.
Yeah, I think that's Simon Pagenaud in front in the number 9 car.
Could well be the case.
We still haven't seen the number 8 out.
Well, actually, he's out now. I mean, Asyon did an outlap a couple of minutes ago, so he is still going. So, in fact, all 3 of them are on track. Alex Wurz is on an outlap, which might be why he's not really leaning on it quite yet, because this might just be building up to speed. Of course, on the straight, you'll be as quick, but you won't, if this is a very soft set of tyres, for instance, you won't be diving as hard into the corners and really ragging it on a building up to speed lap as the car in front might be. What he would like, maybe, is for that car just to be enough to give him a tow down the Mulsanne or something at the beginning of a quali lap, but I think it'll be too far away by then.
Yeah, I think their biggest, I mean, the biggest challenge is to get a traffic-free lap. I'm not even sure if that's possible around this circuit with so many cars, but what this does give you is a fantastic view of the track at night time.
Yeah, and how little of it is lit. Well, yeah, Jeremy, we talked a little earlier with Joey Hand, and traffic is a very relative thing here. All the European drivers saying, it's impossible to get a lap here. And Joey Hand, having done Daytona and Sebring, said, what's the drama? There's 8.5 miles of road. Come over to America and have some traffic.
Yeah, but that was yesterday. Today his comment was, yeah, the traffic's really bad. It was interesting how that changed in less than 24 hours. But, you know, we've got, what, just over half an hour to go now. A lot of the teams have parked their cars. Some of them parked them, you know, way earlier this evening, particularly the Stracker team. We've got various other cars that have had problems of some sort, but there's a lot of cars not out on the racetrack now. So, you know, it's down to nitty-gritty time, this final half hour. The guys that are serious, that really do want to go to the pole, they're going to have a good opportunity to do so, because there will be less traffic out there.
There will be a little less. Alan McNish has stepped out of car number 3. Tom Christensen is in, which suggests...
No, Tom just came in.
Yeah, no, he's still in it.
Yeah, right.
But it suggests now that they are now fully on let's get on the podium on Sunday afternoon mode, and let's not trivialise our weekend by shooting for pole any further. And McNish's parting comment was, now we've got a race car, it really feels good. And of course, those guys do know what good feels like, so we'll take that as read that they're quite happy with Audi number 3 at the moment. And with cars 2 and 1 on the top of the timing sheets, they're not that far away. Well, 0.749 of a second around an 8-mile circuit, which is, what, 2/10 off pole on the Grand Prix length track, tops? Yeah, you'd be happy with that.
Yeah, 3 maybe, yeah, something like that.
No, less. This is way longer than, twice as long, isn't it, than any Grand Prix circuit you're going to go to. So no, it's remarkably close. And down in GT, it's the same. We haven't really talked much about GT. We haven't seen many of the GT cars, but it's still BMW in front of the number 55 car. Yesterday, of course, it's number 56. In the 56 car this evening, Andy Prio had a shunt right towards the end of the first of the 2 qualifying sessions of this evening. But there's a sister car, 55, out in front in GT at the moment by a massive, actually half a second actually, over Giancarlo Fisichella in the Ferrari. The second BMW still remains in third, then the best of the Chevrolets, number 74 Jan Magnussen and co, and then the Ferrari of Liiki, that's the Hankook tyre Ferrari, then the second of the Chevrolets, and then the best of the Porsches, Wolf Hensler in car number 77, and those top half dozen covered by just over a second or so.
Your car is at the moment 6th overall. Are you guys going to attack for a good pole time or for a better time?
No, we are trying to have the best setup for the race. I think this is the most important thing. And the qualify is from the past. Now we have to concentrate in the race and try to do some changes in the car to find the right one.
What are you trying to find?
A good balance. Actually, I mean, we are improving the car through the practice and the qualifiers. We're just trying to have a good balance on the car. Just deciding how much downforce you're going to use for the race as well. So that's a few keys that it's very important.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Well, Pedro, we heard from Simon Pagenaud earlier, was the designated qualifying driver for that car earlier, and the fact that he's wandering around and saying, no, we're just sorting out our race setup kind of underlines that pretty much. And Simon, again, he was the guy that was slightly short on mileage, so he's getting a bit more. And now this is really, everybody should be qualified, they should have done their dart laps. This is now about getting more laps in the car. Guys like Christian Klien, we heard from Darren Turner, really needs some laps in that car in his Aston Martin. There will be a few other drivers that just really need miles, and again, Michael Waltrip, we heard from earlier, he was saying that's exactly what he needs. He needs a 24-hour race, then to come here the following week and do a 24-hour race just so that he's up to speed for the big game. We've got 28 minutes remaining. We'll be back for more of it in just a second. Welcome back live to Le Mans, everybody. We've got yet another car off in the kitty litter. That's car number 35, one of our 111 officially Gulf-coloured cars. Frederic de Roche, Patrick Lartigue and Andrea Balesi in one of the Oak Pescarolo Judds. And Oak have got 2 cars in Gulf colours. One is pale blue with orange highlights, and the other one the mirror image, or the photo negative image, orange with pale blue highlights. And it is the pale blue and orange one that's gone off. So where's post 42? Ooh, blimey, that must be in the Esses de la Chapelle or something. Oh, no, it's further down the straight, isn't it? It's what? Yeah, I know it's 4.2 kilometres in, and where is that on the track? Fool, I know why they call them that. Never mind. John Hindhoff is busy online, as you might imagine. Andre Lotter is still the fastest man in the field for Audi, and quick Nick Minasian, the quickest Peugeot at the moment, or so far overall, has just come into the pit lane as we watch the Zytek Nissan Karim Oj's car heading back out. Incidentally, for those of you that are wondering what a Judd BMW was, as we were last night, it is BMW's 4-litre V8, their M3 GTR engine, which has been John Judded. To what extent? To the greatest extent you can imagine John Judd can Juddize anything, apparently, is the answer.
Yeah, within an 8-month span.
Yeah, within an inch of its life, it's been Judded.
He only started work on the engine, I think, last October or so, so he hasn't had a lot of time on it. But while we were away in break there was an improvement among the top 6. Simon Pagenaud, we heard about the number 8 car not going for the pole. and possibly they're not. Well, probably they're not. Simon himself told us that this afternoon. He's about as straight a shooter as they come, but he has made an improvement though. He's clipped a couple of tenths off the best time that had been set by the number 9 car. He's still 6 on the grid, but now within 0.846 of a second of the pole time set by Andre Lotterer earlier on. So the number 9 Peugeot still going pretty quickly, even if they are in race trim.
Well, Damien Faulkner, it's understandable that they're looking at the battle for outright pole, because that is where the big headlines are. But what we're looking at here really is 6, conceivably 7 cars, diesel engine prototypes, that will win the race outright. The other massive battle is going to be in the GT class. And slightly surprising perhaps to see that Porsche are struggling behind the best of all the rival manufacturers. 77 is the number, the team that won last year. Same driver lineup, same Felbermayr Proton Porsche, same amount of factory backing, but they're struggling behind the BMWs, the Ferraris and the Corvettes, despite the presence of, you know, some good engineering in the stellar lineup. How long in the tooth really is the 911 project? I mean, bearing in mind how aggressively Ferrari developed the 360 to the 430 and even more so to the 458, and how Chevrolet are pushing along all the time. I mean, you know, as a man who spent a lot of time driving Porsches, how much do they think they can continue to polish this thing? It's, you know, it must be nothing left to find in it. Oh, well, hang on a minute. Microphone button. There we go.
That's better.
Professional all the way here.
I don't think it'll sit too well with Porsche being you know, out-qualified and out-raced. So, you know, they've got something up their sleeve, I'm sure. And we'll see something probably shortly within the next year or two. Something that could be radically different from the 911, who knows? I'm talking like I know something.
Are we saying prototype?
Could it be a mid-engined?
Yeah, and we might be seeing something different within a couple of days as well, because, you know, Porsche, I think, you know, they know they're not trying to go for the pole. They're all about the race. What happened 1 year ago? Porsche wasn't particularly fancy, perhaps, going into the race. Who ended up winning? Porsche ended up winning, and I think it's the same this weekend as well, this week as well. The biggest surprise for me, perhaps, amongst that, is the fact that number 80 car, the Pro Flying Lizard Motorsport car, with Jörg Bergmeister, Patrick Long back with the Lizards for the first time in several years here at Le Mans. He's won the class twice in the past, but now back with the Lizards, and Mark Lieb in that car as well. It's a very strong driver lineup. The best lap time they've turned is a 4 minutes 1.4, which is kind of 4 seconds off the ultimate pace of the cars. That's the biggest surprise to me, but they were struggling yesterday. They just weren't happy with the balance of the car. They changed all sorts of things all the way through the night yesterday. They changed the diff, they changed all sorts of settings and just tried to get more speed out of it. And it wasn't until after the sessions were over they found out there's a broken shock absorber on that car. So all the changes they've been making were sending them up a blind alley, and you know, that's kind of easily done even with drivers of that sort of level of experience, Damien.
Yeah, well, absolutely. But I mean, this Porsche, Porsche's renowned for being bulletproof. I've done quite a few 24 hours in 911s, and I've been in the Super Cup, Carrera Cup, and GB Super Cup, and we've been to, you know, countries like, for example, Bahrain, running around all day in like 40 degrees heat, and nothing ever happens to them. So they're absolutely bulletproof, and they're never going to be far away at the end of the race.
Yeah, the weakest link in the Porsche is normally the nut loose behind the wheel, isn't it? Yeah, that's an old joke, but I'm all well recycled there. Yeah, not too bad. What's interesting, actually, well, we've been talking about the gradual improvements in the P class and the prototypes, the very quick cars at the top of the field. What's interesting is I don't think we've seen any car improvements in this session at all in the GT class, so they are all knuckling down and getting on with beating Porsche. And again, when you come to this GT class, because they have been so successful over the years, even Corvette are going to be going, okay, well, we know we have to beat Porsche here. More fast times coming in. Tom Christensen. Well, listen, guys, well, we're walking back from a little snack earlier on, saying this is really great time for engines. It's quite cool, almost verging on not quite a chill in the air, but a little bit of dampness in the air, a little bit of evening cool. That's when engines really like to breathe. It's when, you know, the air is clean and you get a fraction more power. And also, as we've talked about, few more cars. There's a lot of cars in the pit lane at the moment. Probably about half the field are on pit road at the moment. It's a good time to go out and go quick.
Yeah, there's only, I think 11 of the top 24 are out on the track at the moment, possibly even less than that. But, so it is a lot less busy out there now. But a great lap there from Tom Christensen. So we've now got Audi, Peugeot, Audi, Peugeot. So Tom nipping ahead there of the number 7 Peugeot to move himself into 4th place on the second row of the grid.
Yeah, and what's amazing is that it's only 4/10, which is absolutely nothing if you factor in how many corners there are in these 8 and a bit mile laps. It's just a fraction of a tenth of a second each corner, and you have it.
That's half a tenth a mile.
Exactly. And Tom Christensen, he's just gone through the second sector, both his first and second sectors. Personal bests for Tom Christensen in car number 3.
We also probably ought to flag up, particularly for people who are watching on their timing screens at lemans.org, the battle for, quote, petrol pole, unquote, which at the moment, Jeroen Bleekemolen, who is just going out of the pit lane in the number 12 Rebellion Toyota, is the fastest car, but it's not beyond the bounds of possibility that, having been fastest yesterday, Pescarolo's team might just fancy their chances. Manu Carlisle went quick yesterday, but he didn't set the fastest time. The third driver in that car did. Now, Christophe Tanso might even get a chance for a shot in that car, and that actually would be, for the French media, probably almost as big a story, if not a bigger story, than Peugeot being on the outright pole. Particularly if Audi end up on the outright pole, and we're looking at another really quick lap here from the 3 car of Christensen. If Audi end up on the outright pole, and Pescarolo gets a quick one, way out past the AstroTurf. Sarrazin on his quick lap was well onto the AstroTurf, but Christensen luckily had a bit of runoff area there, and that will have been a no lift 'em. And there's a slower car in front. That's the 44. That's Karim Oj's car. And Didier de Fourny is at the wheel of that, but he gets out of the way. And Christensen sets a to 3:26.4. So 3/10 slower. Well, boy. And we talked actually about when Sarrazin was setting his quick lap afterwards, after that period, when he was following another Peugeot through. Of course, he'll have been having wicked bad understeer through the Porsche curves, and the one thing you don't want between narrow walls is them coming up towards you as you turn the steering wheel, and not much is happening, Damien.
No, absolutely not. I mean, it's a fine line between getting a tow and having someone impede your lap. Like I say, I think the biggest challenge is to just get a clean lap where you don't lose the momentum to the slower GT cars, as we ride on board with Christensen again, going for another quick one.
It was a good lap going there, was it? How much time do you think he lost in just going off the road? I mean, he's a long way off the road. That had to cost him at least 4 or 5 tenths of a second, Damien.
It didn't look to have slowed him down.
He went. I mean, he covered a lot more ground, didn't he?
I'd say he might have lost something, but I don't think he's lost any more than like a tenth or 2 tenths.
You reckon? Yeah.
Just very quickly also, Peugeot are doing 12 lap stints, Audi 11. Don't forget the new engines have smaller fuel tanks, but the average stints over laps, Peugeot are 5 seconds slower than Audi on average. Looking down into the pit lane at the rebuilt CRS Ferrari. That was tank slapped into the wall quite early in free practice yesterday. Don't drop it when somebody's got their head in the doorway. By getting extra mileage, because he's also racing the Ferrari Challenge race here as well. How much that translates in terms of how the car feels is neither here nor there, but it's a lot of extra lap time, Jeremy.
As is Scott Tucker, of course, in the level 5 man.
Apart from the red flags that keep interrupting their sessions, obviously. But yeah, you're right.
Tucker was 8th in qualifying, I think.
Yeah, did a nice job. And Pierre, I think, was in the top 10 or 11 somewhere as well. So. And those, as we said, yesterday, Scott Tucker, if you've got a racing championship with Scott Tucker not in it, you're doing something wrong, because he is racing everything. If there's 2 drops of rain on a window pane, Scott Tucker's in one of them at the moment,
I doubt there's a driver in the world who's getting as much racing mileage as Scott Tucker right now. There's a lot of people doing a heck of a lot of time in simulators, but actually out on the racetrack, I doubt there's anybody to compare, even close, probably.
I think Jeroen Bleekemolen would probably give him a run for it.
He's not doing badly, no, that's right, he does.
He's got so much, he's given some to me.
Hey. There you go. Well,
Little puff of dirt there from the number 9 Peugeot. So this is Simon Pagenaud on the hurry up.
And the number 7 and 8 cars are both on their out laps as well. There's a replay again. Yep. And he had to go a long way off the road. I reckon he had to lift going into that corner.
I think so. He will have come across this car going very slowly, and suddenly that may well have been a fairly substantial braking moment, actually.
I'd be amazed if he lost only a tenth of a second.
Well, he was certainly on target for a quicker lap up until that sector, so there's no question the car was going very quickly indeed. Just to go back to what we were looking at earlier, average lap speeds over a stint for a couple of the Audis in the 330s, but for the Peugeot in 335s. So Peugeot are going to need to do a lap more if they're going 5 seconds slower a lap for the race.
And we've got 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 of the top 9 drivers now doing their out laps with 14 minutes and change to go in this session. It's not over yet, folks.
We've now got a bid for drivers that are doing more. Phil Bennett and Michael Vergers are throwing their hat into the ring. Christensen coming in.
So, Tucker's doing the American Le Mans Series, the ILMC, the Ferrari Challenge on both sides of the Atlantic Ocean. You do the Porsche Cup, Porsche Challenge in North America. He's driving an SCCA car. He's driving some vintage stuff. I mean, go for that, Michael.
What, no British Formula Ford and Chinese Touring Car Championship? I mean, really, the champ's not trying at all, is he?
Well, those are the ones we only know about.
Yeah. And, of course, the rest of the time he's on the simulator. Again, more work going on here. Clean screen, fresh set of tyres. It's not going to be about scrubbing in wets. And again, look at this moment. Car in front, and I know. And you can see that lots of times, and you still go, my word. Yikes! Yeah, Olivier Panis there with Frank Lagorce. Two very old, well, not very old, but two long-time buddies. Yeah, sorry, boys, I know. We're all getting that way. And that, again, you know, as a driver, Damien, and the same as us as fans, you know, you look at it and you go, oh, my goodness, that's... Yeah, closing speeds are something you talk about, and that's a real indication of how dramatic it can be. He was probably doing way over 100 miles an hour more than the car that he was coming up behind. If you put that into road terms, then you know just how quick it is.
Yeah, I suppose it always looks less under control when you're looking at it from the outside, but as a driver, I mean, Tom would have been in the zone there. He's going for a quick lap, and his biggest hope would be not to lose too much momentum, and I really don't think he did lose too much momentum. Maybe I'm wrong.
I tell you what,
I'm getting a lot of text messages here from
a lot less under control if I was at the wheel at that moment. But yeah, I mean, this is the reactions that are born of experience, isn't it? Really, very much. Lid comes off number 3. So Tom Christensen still there, and out has gone the number 9 Peugeot, Nick Minassian. Pagenaud, yeah. Nick Minassian's out in car number 8. Pagenaud's just set another best lap for that car, 3:26.01.
Fastest of the Peugeots.
Well,
that's for the car that's supposedly not going for the pole position.
Well, no, that is the car. That is the car. Don't forget. That is the car that Simon Pagenaud told us that Pedro Lamy was getting the qualifying shot in. So Pagenaud is running it in a race pace mode at the moment. Then he may be on light fuel, but we were told, or he was told, that Pedro Lamy was going to get the tyres.
Well, he's done 4 or 5 laps on this stint, hasn't he? I think, was he in the pits just a moment or two ago? I don't think he was.
I don't think so. No, I think he has done at least a couple of laps. So don't forget that when Sarrazin was going very quickly before the break, he had done half a dozen laps at least and had a couple of offs. So it's not beyond the bound of possibility to go quickly.
So there goes TK. Tom Christensen out of the pits one more time for one final run, perhaps for the pole. 11 minutes and change remaining in this session, and yeah, it's all about. I think now it's fair to say it's all about qualifying. The guys around the track now at the front of the field, I think they're each of them trying to get themselves on the pole. But you know, tyre management, tyre usage, tyre conservation, that's going to be a much bigger factor on Saturday and Sunday, and that's what Simon Pagenaud was telling us this afternoon, that was their primary concentration this evening, was to figure out how long they can go on each of the different sets, each of the different tyres. They've got a hard, a medium and a soft compound Michelin tyres that they can try and will use at different stages in the race.
Ooh, Pagenaud, fastest second sector of all. He set a first sector that is the quickest that car has done, and he is now having a run. Now I was just about to suggest, Jeremy, if he's
not been given a specific qualifying tyre. He may well be on the softest compound that Michelin bring as the race tyre, which is what they'll use in the darkness anyway, when ambient temperature is lower, track temperature is lower, engine power is up, and you need just that little, or you can use that little bit more grip and the tyre will last a little longer. And Peugeot have already been triple stinting their tyres. Simon said he did a triple stint earlier in the practice sessions, so we know that they can triple stint their tyres, and we'll have to wait and see what triple stinting does to the Audi drivers, because of course in a closed car it's a very different experience to being in an open car triple stinting, particularly, well, I suppose in the night it's a little bit cooler, but you know, the heat and all of that. So Pagenaud at the moment on a quick lap as we ride on board with Tom Christensen on his out lap. This is going to be a very interesting final 10 minutes.
And he is a star, young Simon Pagenaud, Simon Pagenaud. I guess we're back in France now. He wanted to be called Simon when he was in North America. He's back on his home ground now, so maybe we'll go back to calling him Simon. I think this is him now coming through the Porsche curves, and he's got less than a mile now to get to the to the start-finish line. What can he pull out? Is he going to get held up?
Well, his previous lap 3:26.01. He is way up on that at the moment. Lotterer doesn't go quicker, but is still circulating at the top of the times, and he is not quicker in the 9 car. No.
Lost 4 seconds somewhere on that final sector.
Well, that last sector was 2 seconds slower than Andre Lotterer's, who crossed the line a few seconds in front of him. So something went awry, or he just had the warning signs from those possibly soft race tyres that in fact he was asking an awful lot of them, and would he mind stop?
But, you know, I mean, if he is in race configuration, he's not going to be worried about getting that set in that fastest lap. But because he did stay out, you know, I'm sure if he felt he was on a qualifying run and he'd used up the best of the tyres, you know, or being held up or whatever in that last sector, he would have come into the pits. He didn't. He went on through.
Or maybe he's just made a mistake or something.
Yeah.
Or maybe he's just from telling you earlier that he wasn't going for pole. He didn't want to break his promise.
I just remembered I told Jeremy, somebody tweeted him and said, Jeremy Shaw says, il dit que...
Yeah, don't forget, Simon, don't make liars out of us yet.
The other thing, of course, is that the Peugeots are very, very quick in the middle sector, which is predominantly very fast. Mulsanne straight, down to Indianapolis, yada, yada, yada. So are we seeing that Audi may have an all-round better balance, and that Peugeot have got all-round better top speed? Maybe the first run down the Mulsanne straight with the full field might give us an indication there.
From my perspective, we can draw no conclusions really from what we've seen from yesterday and today.
We always will draw conclusions.
Other than,
how right we are.
Other than they're very, very closely matched.
They are very close. Well, again, how close? Those of you not looking at a time screen, 6/100ths of a second between first and second. Now, if that was around Montreal tomorrow between the two Red Bulls, you'd be going, wow, 6/100ths, that's close. We've got 6 more miles of track to play with. That's how close that is. And again, Tom Christensen, best first sector for that car, so he's not hanging around either. And in fact, he had to wait for a couple of minutes in the pit lane for the tyres to come out of the toaster.
Yeah.
So he's got some quick rubber on it.
And it's, you know, the top 6 now covered by 0.534 of a second. Just over half a second covering the top 6 on an 8.5 mile track.
It's astonishing, really, isn't it? It just goes to show you how good a job the teams and drivers alike are doing. I mean, they're all on top of their game.
And all of the drivers are turning quick laps. I mean, each of the drivers in each of the cars are right on their game, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely.
Really are, aren't they? Just coming up behind somebody smoking and spitting gravel out as we ride on board with Audi number 1, flashing the headlights. Get out the way, get out the way, don't turn in on me, because I won't be stopping. Turning right into Mulsanne corner, long sweeping right-hand approach, really heavy braking there, down 3 gears, and it's a 90-degree right. Timo Bernhardt now heading out through the first of 3 kinks up to Indianapolis. And this is some of the very fastest parts of the track, and he's got traffic in front coming down. This is the Ford chicane. Which car is this? Flashing headlights. It's the Peugeot diving through. Is that Pagenaud? Number 9 car, 3:20. No, it can't be. It's the 2 Audi then. 3:29 across the line. Pagenaud in 9. Comes across the line a long way away. 4.2 seconds away from the fastest time. So it looks as though his shot, so much as it might have been, has gone so far. Sweeping down into the Esses de la Chapelle. That other road, incidentally, as they come down the hill, you think, oh, they're not turning tight enough. That's the Bugatti circuit. That's the one used by World Series by Renault, MotoGP and everything else that does not use the full Circuit des Unaudières, which is the technical name for this because it used the Ligne droite des Unaudières, or the Mulsanne Straight as we name it in English. The other one is the Circuit Permanent de la Sarthe, named after Ettore and Jean Bugatti. And there's a local resident who knows plenty about this, Sebastian Bourdais, just chatting there to Bruno Famin, the man with the headset on. He's the technical director of the Peugeot programme. He's the man who heads up the engineering team. Nick Minassian and his Peugeot out for a final hurrah. In fact, all the front runners are out, apart from Nico Prost. That car that is on the petrol pole is back in the pit lane.
3 minutes 27.6 there for Tom Christensen in car number 3. And he set the fastest personal first sector.
Oh, that's it. End of qualifying. Because when the yellow flags come out, there's no improvement. This is Michel Frey, Ralph Maitri and Mark Rostan's car, the Race Performance Oreca. And again, the sector will go yellow. And although it is a green flag, that's post 96. Now, the first chicane is at about 100. So it's not 100 anythings, it's kilometre 10, no, kilometre 1 post, or I don't know. Indianapolis, it might have been, yeah, it might have been the left at Indy. Indianapolis is yes, yeah, that's a good call actually. Post 96.
Let's get that map, must move tomorrow.
Yeah. There is a map that we have that has all the posts on it, which tells us immediately where it is.
The last lap of Simon Pagenaud, once again, it was that third sector that he was held up in, or didn't get a fast time through that third sector. I'm going to prove it down there. It's third place in the GTE amateur class. Darren Law just turned a 4 minutes 03.6, so he's in third place, just behind. It's the number 61 car, the Ferrari.
That's Perezzini, Ciocci and Breslin.
Yep, Sean Breslin. That car is out by what, about a second or so in that fastest in that class. Then the number 63, the Felbermayer car of the Felbermayers, and Christian Reed, second place in GTE Amateur. And then the number 81 Flying Lizard car, Darren Law, Spencer Pompelli and Seth Nyman. And a good lap there by Darren Law. He gets himself ahead of Patrick Guibon in the number 70 Porsche as well. So
I've got to say, actually, that second Lizards car looks like a really strong bet in the AM class, doesn't it? You know, they've got drivers who've got a lot of experience. Let's face it, they've been run by Flying Lizards, so it's not exactly that they're going to put the front wheels on the back or vice versa. Those guys really do know their onions, and that's a, you know, those guys, Seth Lyman, Darren Law and Spencer Pompelli, they've had a lot of laps in a lot of tough races in those Lizards Porsches. I think they look pretty strong. They're not the fastest at the moment. That is the Perezzini Ferrari, but those guys have spent a lot of time racing in Europe. Again, looking at the clock running on Audi number 3.
This will be the last lap for these two.
Yeah, it will be. Minute and a half remaining. Anywhere else, you'd be back at the stripe by then. And the Peugeot in the way, and that is Alexander Wurz. He won't be deliberately balking.
He won't.
Hindhoff gives me the look. That's, you know, that's not a Doug Feehan, the look that Ollie Gavin gets when he says, can I have all the stuff on the outside? Yes, well, no, we don't want to see it. We just want to see people who also want to see it. That'll be a much better. And some more people who would also like to see it. Audi first and second at the moment.
And the number 2 car already on the provisional pole at the moment, of course.
This is Peugeot number 8, outlap for Nick Minassian.
Yeah, so what can Nick do?
Well, nothing, because it's his outlap.
Oh, right. Was that not him just came past, though? Yeah, it's just...
Oh, right, so he's... Oh, yes, he has. So it's 40 seconds. So, right, okay, so...
He's just starting his...
Exactly the right time. This is exactly what we saw last night, isn't it? In that last minute.
More dust being kicked up at the exit of Dunlop Bridge, so they are really using all the road more. That particular instance was Timo Bernhardt, Nothing spectacular on his last lap.
Oh, he's been held up.
You know, I think what the ACA should do, they should park all the GT cars for the final 10 minutes or so. Maybe even do the same for GT. Allow them a 15-minute section.
Oh, wow. Peugeot off, or is that an Audi?
It's an Audi.
It's an Audi. It's TK.
Yes, Wolfgang Ulrich. Christensen had just set a personal best in sector 1, 32.2 seconds for that first sector here.
Checkered flag is out, so no more cars that cross the stripe will start a quick lap. And with a big yellow flag zone, I don't think we should see any improvements. As you say, Tom Christensen had gone fastest of all that cars, 8 hours of running.
And Manassia was behind TK on the road. There he is.
Oh, wow. That snapped away. Now that is a wheel on the dirt on the outside of the circuit. And
that's what it looked like, yeah.
Was that Shimano berth, Johnny? Not, don't know. First chicane, really, was it? Okay. Sort of quite a long way off.
Yeah, quick Nick Manassia in his first sector was a second down on an ultimately fast section, so I don't think we're going to see that kind of rate challenging for the pole. But as I was saying, he was behind Christensen on the road, so there would have been yellow flags out for where Christensen went off the road, so Manassia would have had to slow down through that sector.
Yeah, it's damaged on the right rear, so it's come to rest, not where it hit the barriers.
Left front as well.
Yeah, it does look like this. A fair degree of damage to be done, which is a bit of a shame since they built them ready for the race. This is car number 2, remaining Audi. This is the car that has got pole position, and Andre Lotterer will take the checkered flag. One red light on the side means he's in first position in that class. We'll take the checkered flag in the pit lane then, so he is coming in. There is Simon Pagenaud.
Good job he's done. That car's fun. Yeah, I mean that car is super consistent as well. We've seen it all the way through the last couple of days. Both the Audis and the Peugeots can turn these quick laps pretty much any time they like.
I think it was a bit of an anti-climax not seeing Stefan Sarrazin out for a Banzai lap.
Well, you know, Audi were saying we're bored of Sarrazin having pole, and clearly Peugeot are as well, because they didn't send him out near the other. They sent out Pagenaud. Now, Sarrazin now start phoning his agent and go, hang on a minute. This Pagenaud bloke, he's got the run. What's going on with that then?
Well, he's dumped it twice in the last session, didn't he? So
yeah, and still went quickest.
Yeah.
Yeah, so
after a good few laps on those tyres.
Is it me, or have there been a lot of cars going off? This is Andre Lotterer stepping out of the car to a blaze of photographers' flashes. Not really what anybody at Peugeot wanted to see, an Audi driver on pole position, but on the other hand, it's all about Sunday now. Not about Thursday or Friday's headlines. You can forgive not getting pole if you win the race. Of course, you'd like to have both, but on the other hand, you know, you'll take it.
You talked about have there been more cars? Yes, there have, particularly the turbo diesels. I'm surprised to have seen so many of the Audi and the Peugeots off the track in various shapes or forms.
Well, it just goes to show you how hard they're trying, isn't it?
Well, there you go.
A little disappointed seeing all the photographers being bundled out of the garage by assorted Audi personnel. We associate that with another team at the other end of the pit lane quite frequently, but Audi normally try and like to get their photographs taken of their guys when they're doing well. It's not as if there's an awful lot of vital work going on now. I'm sure they could have slapped their backs and still let the photographers in. And Tom Christensen
shaking the dust off his gloves.
A little bit disappointed with that.
Not a happy bunny, I think. That is very surprising to see him off the road.
There is a very, very happy new crew chief. Also significantly lighter to lift than Brad Kettler. So, you know, win-win situation. She is the crew chief of that car. She's been promoted, started with Audi as a data technician. She worked on the number 3 car, didn't she, as a data technician from there. She's now a car crew chief. In fact, there is Brad Kettler on the right-hand side of your photo, walking towards the camera. One of the 3 car chiefs here. He's looking very happy as well.
In stark contrast too.
Yeah, okay, so coming down here, this is not the chicane. It is. That's Shimano berth. That's the turn into Tete Rouge. He dropped a wheel off on the outside.
Yeah, where Rocky went off a couple of years ago, didn't he?
I read that correctly the first time. Make a note in your diary, everybody. feel free to retweet it. It doesn't happen often. It's like me calculating points in my head while talking over a podium. That's never usually a good thing. Marino Franchitti, that's a bit banjoed. Yeah, I think it probably is. And yeah, Tom.
Rehydrating there with a bottle of water. I wonder, did he take that around in a drinks holder?
The Marshall's Post will have that there, won't they?
Actually, one of the Danish fans will have it. There's plenty of them around.
Yeah, no shortage of them.
I think it's something stronger he needs right now.
But yeah, Danish fans drinking water. Hang on, what are we thinking about?
True.
Any Le Mans fans drinking water. So Brad Kettler getting ready for his X Factor appearance there. Microphone reference, lost on Jeremy Shaw. Looks pretty happy with that, doesn't he? Bruno Fama, well, they did their best, they said. There are 6 cars within half a second, and we gather Peugeot number 9 had a puncture on his last lap, Simon Pagenaud. That's not a surprise, really, given how many cars had flung it off into the kitty litter. You know, gravel does tend to have a detrimental effect on the cars, not just in terms of grip, but it can spring punctures as well. And there's been a lot of cars gone off.
And that is going to be a factor during the race, how many punctures. We've seen a lot of punctures over these last couple of days. And as you said, there's a lot of kitty litter not far off the racing circuit. And we are going to be seeing cars going off on a pretty regular basis, as we have yesterday and today. So you've got to take care of those tyres, and you've got to be a little bit lucky as well not to get a puncture.
Well, Brad Kettler, we saw the crew chief on the 2 car, and Lena, the lead engineer on that car. So she is the interface between the drivers and the car itself, trying to make it work, and she's done a great job.
Dr. Ulrich, the first row is an Audi row. Was that what you hoped for here?
I mean, qualifying really is not the most important thing, but it's great. It's a perfect motivation for the team, because they really had a hard year to work on. This completely newly developed car was a lot of work to be done, and for them it's the best reward.
Tom Christensen is just coming back. He had an off. Do you already know what happened exactly?
Unfortunately, Tom Christensen is not back. He's in the gravel bed.
Ah, I see. Yeah, that's car number 1. But car number 1 and car number 2 on the first row, did you expect the times of 3:25?
Definitely not. We thought we would do something about 26, but I think it's just a reward of good work.
The top 6 cars are in half a second. I think we can expect a good race.
Yeah, I'm not really surprised that the result is that tight. We know that the competition this year will be on the highest level, I think, ever. And this should be a great show for the spectators. And we will try to make a good race out of it.
Thank you very much and congratulations.
Thank you.
Well, Audi have locked out the front row of the grid. When was the last time they did that? Peugeot have made gathering poles pretty much a speciality, and not just Peugeot either, but Stefan Sarazan, and he wasn't even in the frame in the last 30 minutes. But Andre Lotterer, Timo Bernhardt, you can see walking in there. Their cars will start first and second. Audi number 2 on pole, Audi number 1 in second place, and Lena, the chief engineer on that number 2 car, saying, okay, well, it's all about winning the 24 hours. It is not about winning pole. She will be very disappointed if that's all they come away with here. Peugeot, 3rd quickest and 4th quickest. So it's an all Peugeot row 2, Audi and Peugeot on row 3, honours even, 1 row each and a half. And then the Orica Matmut Peugeot again, 4.3 seconds off the fastest lap, so nearly 4 seconds slower than the next closest car, but getting on for 3 seconds quicker than the petrol pole sitter, which is the Rebellion Racing number 12, ahead of the Pescarolo.
Yeah, and that Orica team, I'm pretty sure they had no interest in going for the pole. That's not what they're here for. They know that, you know, with the newer cars should be going for the poles. We see the rundown there. You can see the colours next to the numbers. That denotes what class they're in. The blue there is for LMP2, the red for
Worth
LMP1.
pointing out that Stracker there, second in class. The pole sitter is Lucas Ordonez in that Nissan Orica. They are in the the pole position on the P2 class. In the GT class, Dirk Werner, the last man to drive the number 55 BMW, which is on pole position. The Ferrari, Tony Wielander, who shares with Giancarlo Fisichella, that car is second, and Andy Prio's wrecked BMW will start third ahead of Jan Magnussen. The 74 Corvette, the 89 Ferrari, which is the Hankook Tyres car, and the 73 Corvette. And then that's in the Pro class. In the AM class, the 61 Ferrari on pole from the 63, 81 and 70 Porsches. And that is the remainder of your 56 car field. So, night has fallen. It's no longer Thursday. It is now day off, Friday. However, there will be an awful lot of engineers up and down the pit road who have got quite a lot more work to do than they would have hoped with. Hope that you've enjoyed our practice and qualifying coverage. Don't forget that 24 Minutes will be back tomorrow evening on British Eurosport and Eurosport International at 7:30 p.m, the regular scheduled time. Tennis allowing. Please don't get annoyed when sports are allowed to reach their conclusion. And then we will join you for the morning warm-up, for the Legends race, and for the 24 hours itself. Live, unadulterated and exclusive coverage. Eurosport, Eurosport 2, British Eurosport and British Eurosport 2. The whole team will be back again on Saturday morning. We'll see you then. Until that time, goodbye from Le Mans and have a good evening.